This is Studio 809.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I am your host, Hiking Bob Falcone. You can find out anything you want to know, or maybe even don't want to know, at my website, hikingbob.com, where I have links to my social media account, my column at the Colorado Springs Independent. Also, my photography website. There's a feature there where you can send me a message if you have a question, comment, an idea for a topic that you want to talk about. You can do that on there, and also a link to Patreon where you can support this podcast by donating and be rewarded for your donations. Kevin, you know something I'm going to do with that this year? I'm going to try to put in a flexible thing instead of having pre-designated amounts people can give.
Yeah.
I'm going to see if Patreon will let me just let people pick whatever they want.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Which I think will give people more flexibility. That's one thing that some listeners have asked. As you heard, my co-host Kevin Wild Westendorf is here. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, everyone. It's great to be here. It's great to be back at Bob's house in the studio. After not being in the studio for 2 months, I feel like. And yeah, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Wild Westendorf, and my website at www.wildwestendorf.com.
And Cole still treated you like a stranger. Kevin, how you been doing?
Oh, I've been great. Just really excited to start the new year. I know it's an arbitrary timeline, but yeah, I'm just excited to see what's in store for this year.
Excellent. Well, glad to have you here, and glad to be back. We're back in Colorado. Drove all night, came in, and got here, and we'll be here for a little while, and we'll head back down there in a couple of months.
Cool.
And then we have that trip, as we talked about in the last podcast, a trip to Big Bend that's coming up at the end of March. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So a lot of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
In the meantime, it's winter. And today I was out hiking. Cole and I were out hiking, and we were in North Cheyenne Canyon and did a loop on Gold Camp Road over the tunnel, and then down through Sweetwater Canyon, and then back up. We used a lot of the new trails that they built up there. It was a lot of fun, and it was beautiful out there today.
I'm jealous.
I was texting some friends of mine who were like, yeah, it's 25 degrees and there's no wind and no humidity. And they're all like, that's too cold. I'm going, it's pretty nice right now.
It feels great, yeah.
It was pretty nice. So we had a good time. And Cole, he got to run loose a little bit on Gold Camp Road. That's outside the park limit, so I can let him run loose on Gold Camp Road a little bit. And he loved that and rolled around the snow. And he
that's
was
awesome.
Yeah, he was a happy camper. So I think he's pretty happy, and he's doing really well after a surgery. So we had a good day out there today, enjoying the weather. And to be honest with you, there's a lot about the first day hikes that they like to talk about here, and all the state parks did a first day hike, and it's a very successful thing. Gets people out, sort of like the opt outside Friday after Thanksgiving. Get everybody out, and especially on Thanksgiving, do it a day after Thanksgiving, get everybody out after eating big meals all day during Thanksgiving. New Year's Day, everybody who's may or may not have been celebrating a little too much, or maybe not, the night before, gets everybody out. Really successful. We were in Phoenix for that, and it was terrible weather down there the last few days we were there. And New Year's Day was like 45 degrees, 50 degrees, and just raining, and just pouring rain. And,
that's not fun.
No fun. I mean, the temperature was okay, but it was just pouring rain. And we had a friend of mine from back east was actually visiting with her fiance relatives in Scottsdale. So we actually went to their place and had a nice little brunch New Year's Day. So it was a good day. We had a good day regardless, even if we weren't out hiking. We had a wonderful day anyway. So did you do a first day hike on New Year's Day?
No, I did not, because the weather here was not great either. Not nearly as bad as what it looked like in Phoenix and Flagstaff and such, but and I am one of those people that partied a little too hard the night before. So
you're the kind of person it's made for, Kevin.
Yeah.
It was anyway. So we had a great time down there, and we're looking forward to doing it. I thought we could summarize how the year went for us. And, I post every hike I do, and you do the same thing. I think you post every single hike you do. And I do a running total, which hike number this was, how many miles year to date it was. Yep. Do the same thing. I summarize it if Cole's with me, how many miles he's had that day. So for anybody who's interested, I ended up the year with 168 hikes, for 850.6 miles year to date, and that's my second best ever. My first best ever was just a couple years before when I did 859 point something.
Oh, that's
really,
awesome.
I'm waiting for my spreadsheet to come up, but I'm having an issue with getting the Excel updated. And I think that averages out to 5.06 miles. Now, that's not a median number, and I'm trying to... Excel has apparently a way to find the median, which is opposed to the average.
Yeah.
There's a difference there. Math, any listener to this show knows math goes way over my head. But anyway, I thought it was a pretty good year. So I went into December not sure I would even hit 800, which I try to do at least 800. And you remember we talked about that, but I actually managed to hit 800 and then kill it. So pretty good. I know for most people, they're like, yeah, whatever. But, it's a personal goal. Eventually, it becomes a goal. I'm asked every year if I have a goal for the year. My goal typically is, the usual stuff. I want to hike more. I want to hike newer trails. I want to see different places. It's the same thing that I think most people listen to this show do. And then my personal goal is to do at least 800 miles a year. And a lot of times there are constraints there, which could be travel, which I did a lot of travel this past year.
That's right.
Some constraints could be, as you know, I'm involved in a lot of social, and I shouldn't say social, a lot of advocacy stuff with parks. So a lot of that is meetings and doing stuff like that. So that has an impact on how often I can go out. But I try to go out as often as I can. And when I talk about hikes too, this does not include the days in between hikes when Cole and I are walking in the neighborhood or anything like that. So on those days, those don't count. We're out on foot. So he and I are out a lot. But the only thing that counts is if I'm wearing a pack and I'm on a trail, that's what counts as a hike.
Same here.
So Cole did 420.1, which not bad considering he was out 3 months after he had his knee surgery. I did pretty good.
He kicked my butt.
He kicked your butt. Usually he kicks my butt. So it was a good year. And I'm hoping that everybody listening had a good year. Kevin, you had a good year. You were out there doing some stuff. So everybody's had a good year. I think we finally kind of got around the bend on this COVID thing, and we're able to get together with groups more and do stuff. And I did a number of group things with some nonprofits, and we had a good time doing that. And there's more of that I think coming up in 2023 and this year. So it actually was can't complain about how the year went.
Exactly, same here.
Yeah, good. So and Kevin, we talked a little bit about on the last podcast about whether you had any plans for this year, and I know you're still up in the air. And my only other plan for this year is the one that's already been set, which is to go to Big Bend in March. We talked a little bit about going to Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. Yep. Still kind of looking at that maybe for something for the summer, and then I'm thinking about trying to go out to Vermont and upstate New York for the fall color season.
Oh, beautiful!
Yeah, Vermont. I haven't been there in the fall since we moved here 30 some odd years ago, and then upstate New York around what they call the Finger Lakes area, Watkins Glen. In the fall is gorgeous, and they have waterfalls, and you get the fall colors.
Ooh,
so
nice.
That might be one of the things, flying to Albany and go east for a little while, then go back west for a little while, and then fly back out of Albany or something like that. So kind of a thing, but I want to try and hit more places. While traveling back and forth to Phoenix, and you go, going to Phoenix is pretty easy. You go to Albuquerque, you make a right. You go to Flagstaff, you make a left.
Yeah.
2 turns. It's pretty easy. But there's a couple of national monuments in National Park that are kind of along that I-40 stretch. There's Petrified Forest, which is in Arizona. It's right off of I-40. And then in New Mexico, near Grants, New Mexico, which is about 50 miles east of the Arizona border. Okay. There's a couple of national monuments. El Malpay. I'm not sure. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that right. And El Morro. El Morro is pretty small, but they have a number of trails, and they have some pretty interesting archaeological stuff there. And I'm looking at those and go, well, it's about 150 miles between Grants and then Holbrook, Arizona, by where Petrified Forest is. But I'm thinking it might be a good way to maybe spend 10 days.
Oh, yeah.
Go out and spend a couple days at one, then drive over to the other, and then spend a couple days in Petrified Forest and doing some stuff there. And then if I wanted to go even further, I can go down to Canyon de Chelly, which is a little further south. I've been there. It sounds like, though, much of that is closed for some issues with crowd controlling and stuff. So it may not be worth the trip down there. and then maybe circle back up through the Four Corners and Monument Valley, which, as you know, is just one of my favorite ever places. So that's a maybe that'll happen kind of thing. But kind of looking at that, I don't know. So I'm trying to, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm trying to keep open for opportunities that might pop up like that.
Yeah.
To get to the western edge of New Mexico, from here is about a 7-hour drive. And it's I-25. Like I said, go to Albuquerque, make a right, get on I-40, and if you hit Arizona, you've gone too far, kind of a thing. So I may look at something like that if I have time.
And
sometime this year.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, if it's a little bit out of the way, but Bandelier is a fantastic place to stop at. Because I talked about it when I went there in 2021, and I just had a blast there. Not any wild hikes or anything that I did out there, but it's just the history of the area, which is incredible.
Yeah, so and I've seen that pop up too. It's kind of off the highway though, isn't it?
Yeah,
you got to go off. So, but if you plan it right, you can hit those. I just like that that these 3 sites were, 2 hours apart and right along the same highway. So the way I drive, maybe an hour and a half apart. If you're listening, you're from the State Patrol. I don't know what you're talking about. So anyway, Kevin, that's kind of the things that happened. That's how my year went. I was pretty happy with being able to do the 850 miles. I was kind of prodded by my friend Paula, who was like, she was watching, goes, "You could do 850 this year." And I'm like, I'm looking at that going, do I have to? I hit 800. And I'm like, I can't let that go. So a challenge accepted and got it done. So really pretty happy about that. So. And
I'm also having an issue bringing up my spreadsheet. There's something about the spreadsheets now that won't work. But if I remember right, my total for the year was 362 miles. So on average, that's a bit of a lackluster year. But I want to say my best year was in 2018 when I was doing all the training for the Grand Canyon. And I'm still mad at myself that I didn't catch this error, but I got up to, I think it was 586 miles. And for some reason, I just didn't realize that because I think I entered in a couple numbers wrong or something. And then at the end of the year, when I was double checking everything on the spreadsheet, I realized I was actually very, very close to 600. So it would have been cool to just do a couple more hikes
to make it 600.
That. Yeah. So there's always next year. So.
Well, on December 31st, when I'm looking at it, I'm going, I need 7.14 miles to hit this. And let's see, sometimes the GPS does some auto correcting. So, yeah, I'm going to do about 7.5. And that's what I did. And so it was 850.6. I was aiming for 850.0, but I was like, I need to go just a little higher than that. So my best year ever, and again, if this is going to drive you crazy listening to this, sorry. My best year ever was 2020, I think. And now that I can open up the spreadsheet, 859.8. So I missed it by 9.2 miles.
That's not bad.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And by far, that's the best year. This is the second best year I've ever had. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's 5.063 miles on average for anybody who's interested. I'll figure out how to get Excel to tell me what the median number of miles is, which is something entirely different and way over my head to figure out on my own. But apparently this Excel spreadsheet can do it for me. In any case, pretty good year.
Yep.
And a good year for you, good year for me. I'm hoping a good year for everybody listening. And hopefully this coming year will be even better.
Yeah, and I want to, I know I did Mount Whitney, which is a 23-mile hike, but I want to get back to where I was in 2018 and 19, where I was just constantly doing those huge hikes. They were just a ton of fun. I think 2020 and all the stuff that happened, it knocked me off course a little bit, but I am so ready to get back onto that.
Cool. Well, I hope we do get back on that. I mean, it'd be good. Life happens, and we have to adjust. And as much as this is definitely a lifestyle for you and me and most of the people listening to this, it's also not mandatory. I mean, we do it when we can. We do it because we enjoy it. We do it because it helps our health and well-being and stuff like that. But we also have to recognize the world doesn't stop and end on our hiking.
Yeah.
So we get it in when we can and, hope for the best. Kevin, we'll just touch briefly on winter hiking tips. We were actually having a real winter this year.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since we've had one of these.
It's surprising, yeah.
Where we've had, while we were gone, I was watching, my home weather station here. It was 10 below one night, 8 below the next night. Barely got above freezing above zero for a few days.
With the wind chill, that went down to the negative 20s I saw at one point, which, that was miserable.
And let's just remind everybody that there's no need to go out when it's that cold. Just
exactly.
Stay home and stay warm. And if you want to prove something to yourself, fine. But remember, if something happens to you, other people have to come out and get you. If it's 20 or 30 below zero, unless you're doing like I was, and it was your job to be out in that weather, just stay home and enjoy a bazillion things to watch on Hulu.
It's fine if you spend a day or two inside,
yeah,
if the weather's bad. 'Cause like Bob said, it's a great point. You're not only putting yourself in danger, but you're putting everyone else in danger who has to come and save you.
Exactly. So, a couple of little tips. This is a good time to have insulated hiking boots. Not necessarily the big clodhopper snow boots, because they can be not comfortable to hike in, but there are good insulated hiking boots. I have a pair that I just absolutely love. Insulated hiking boots, this is when dressing in layers is what we're really talking about, and especially a wicking layer at your skin, because you will sweat.
Yep.
When you're out there. Today I was out hiking, and it was only about 25 degrees, so not below zero or anything like that. But you will sweat, so you want to have that moisture, because when you stop moving, that sweat,
it gets cold real fast.
will freeze your core in a hurry, and you don't want to have that happen to you. So dress in layers, pay attention to the weather. A windproof outer shell is something you got to have, because that wind could kick up and you could get cold in a hurry. Before we came on, I told Kevin that on the way back home last night, we stopped in Gallup, New Mexico to refuel, feed coal, get a snack, that kind of stuff. And it was about 30 degrees. There was a fresh layer of ice on the ground, and the wind was howling. And that was the coldest 15 minutes I've spent outdoors, bundled up. I had my, when we travel down, we bring our winter gear because we know it's going to be different, between Phoenix and here. And it was bundled up. It was the coldest 15 minutes I've spent outdoors in a very long time. It was miserable out there. Of course, good day not to be outside. But in any case, dress in layers. Definitely need to cover all your exposed skin, or be ready to cover all your exposed skin. There's been a lot of talk, about how you lose most of your heat through your head. You lose heat through anything that's not covered. The only reason why people talk about the head is because people don't always think about putting a hat on or something like that. But you're going to lose heat through anything that's not covered. So gloves, bring multiple layers. Remember to have that stuff with you. Don't forget it gets dark early. Even though we're gaining a little bit of time now that we're past the winter solstice, but it gets dark early, and it's going to get really, really cold when that sun goes down. If you've got you could be, and we've talked about this, Kevin, it could be 10 below outside, but it's a sunny day, and there's no wind. It's actually really comfortable out there. But when that wind picks up or that sun goes down, it's going to get cold in a hurry, so keep an eye on the time. And remember your electronics, your GPSs, your phones. Cold weather affects the basically chemical reaction that occurs in batteries that makes them produce electricity.
Yep.
When it gets cold, those chemical reactions slow down. Those batteries can go quote unquote dead. They're actually just cold, and they'll come back on when they warm up. So remember that happens. So keep your phone in an inner pocket in your coat so it's near your body so it stays warm. Your GPS, same thing. Keep it close to you. And recognize that those things happen. Have spare batteries that you keep inside a pocket that are warm so that you can swap those out or something like that. So just remember all those things. Same thing with flashlights. They can go dead because it's just cold. So have extra batteries. Or if you're not using a flashlight, keep it in your pack where it's warm or something like that. If you're wearing a pack that has a bladder in it, like a Camelback, those tubes can freeze up. There's a couple ways around it. You can get insulating sleeves for the Camelback, the drinking tube. The other way, if you don't have that, is when you're done drinking out of it, is to blow back into it. So it blows the water out of the tube back into the bladder. Either one of those works to keep, because once that tube freezes up, then you're not going to get any water. And you need to be hydrated even when it's cold out there. These are pretty simple things. Kevin, you got any other good hints to throw in there?
No, I think you nailed it. I think that the coldest I've ever hiked in was when it was 7 degrees out. But it was 6 o'clock in the morning in Red Rock Canyon after a fresh thing of snow, and there was no wind or anything, so it felt great. But I still made sure like my face was covered. I had gloves on and everything, because even though the weather was great, like it was just beautiful, just fresh powder on the ground, and it was cloudy, so it was just very, very bright. And I believe if your skin is exposed to 16 degrees or lower, your chances of getting frostbite can happen within 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's very, very important to remember to cover your face, your ears, your neck, everything.
I even wear a buff now that I just wear just around my neck, just to keep my neck warm. And then if I need to, I can pull it up over my face. That if I'm, starting to get cold, when even though I have a beanie pulled down over my head, I can pull that up and just keep my ears a little warmer and stuff like that. So even if just a buff that you just wear around your neck, which keeps your neck warm, that kind of stuff. If you run out of water, one thing is don't eat snow.
Yeah, it's gross.
Well, not only that, but it's cold, and you ingest that cold. Yeah. What experts say is if you need hydration, it's okay to collect snow, but let it melt into a can or into a bottle or something, so that it's at least at room temperature, an ambient temperature, not so cold, if that makes sense. So it warms up a little bit, I guess, to melt. But you don't want to ingest anything super cold, because that's real cold stuff going right into your core.
Yep.
And that's not good for you. That's a pretty bad thing. So just basic stuff. I think everybody here probably knows this stuff, but it never hurts to be reminded. And just watch the weather forecast. If my friend Matt Meister is great at telling people what's going to happen in the next couple of hours or next couple of days, and keep an eye on the weather forecast. If this forecast is going to be a miserable, cloudy, windy, below zero, and rotten wind chill day, that's a good day to just hit up whatever your favorite streaming channel is and kick back.
Yep.
And I've been binging a couple of shows on Hulu lately, so it's been all good. And do that kind of stuff when it's really just not a good day. None of the stuff's worth risking your life for. We haven't really talked about it on here, I don't think, but I did write about it in a couple of columns at the Indy about this new feature in the iPhone 14. And it's got a pretty cool feature in it, which it has two-way satellite communications. So that it's sort of like a personal locator beacon. And I will tell you that I still think a personal locator beacon is still the way to go. But if you've got an iPhone 14, it'll notify if you get into trouble and you don't have cell phone or Wi-Fi service, it'll switch to satellite communications. And it'll prompt you for something. Are you the person who needs help? What kind of help do you need? Are you injured? Are you stuck? Are you lost? Something like that. And what kind of help do you need? And you answer some questions, and it sends a signal, a text message to the nearest 911 center, and gets help coming. So that's a pretty cool feature. And I think it's a great idea. I think it's pretty ingenious from Apple, and you get 2 years of that service for free. They don't know what they're going to do after that.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They don't know what they're going to do after that 2 years. I call them and ask them, and they're like, we're not sure. We'll figure it out when we hit 2 years. Okay, fair enough. And it was actually credited with saving some people's lives in California who were on a mountain road, drove off the road, tumbled down a canyon.
I think I read about this.
And they didn't have cell phone service, so that satellite communications got them rescued. They had to be hoisted out of there by a helicopter.
Yeah.
Pretty cool feature. Well, part of this SOS service is that if it has cell phone service and it detects that you've fallen or your car was in a crash, it'll call 911. And that just happened this past week west of here on Highway 24 near Waldo Canyon, where if you've driven up there what they call the Narrows, where the road's really narrow, and there's a deep ravine between the eastbound and westbound lanes, a car went off the road, ended up upside down in the creek down there. Crash detection, notified 911, and a bunch of people went up there to help. I mean, they had 4 fire departments and a bunch of people went up there to help, got those people out of there. They were notified by the crash detection feature and the SOS feature in the iPhone. So really cool piece of technology that's in there. However, and there's always a however, it's not so good for one thing. And it turns out that people who have these phones with them when they're skiing, and they fall while they're skiing, which if I'm not a skier, but I imagine you fall probably quite a bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't run into trees, but you probably fall quite a bit. People fall, it detects that they fell, and it calls 911. 911's getting a lot of calls for people who don't need help. Now, there's a slight delay where it detects it and you have to, yes or no, do you need help? But two things are wrong with that. One is it's only like, I believe, a 20-second delay. Well, the phone's buried inside your parka while you're skiing. And B,
and you may not realize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or if you do, you can't get it out in time. And there's also that people may not hear that alert that, hey, do you need help? So it operates a little different than the satellite-based help, where you have to answer some prompts. With the one where you have a cell phone signal, it's 20 seconds. I haven't heard from you. I'm calling for help. So these 911 centers are getting inundated with calls from these iPhones with this fall detection thing in there. Apple's apparently aware of it. This is what we call the law of unintended consequences.
Yep.
Apple's apparently aware of it, so they're going to work on a fix. In the meantime, it's just not helping these 911 call centers. They're getting many calls a day from people just out skiing and hit a hard bumper. Maybe they fall over while they're skiing. They're fine, but the phone doesn't think they're fine. I think the suggestion I would have for people right now is if you're going to be skiing, turn off that fall detection, an SOS feature. I'm sure it's a feature you can turn off. Turn that off while you're skiing. There's plenty of people around you. If you fall, somebody's going to see you, and somebody will go get the ski patrol, and they'll come get you. You probably don't need it just then. And I think Apple needs to look at a couple of different things. Either make it a positive response. So it's sort of like when you get email, it's either you opt in or you opt out. Make it that you opt into getting help as opposed to opting out of getting help, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So instead of saying, no, I don't need help, you need to hit something that says, yes, I do. The argument is if you fall and you get knocked unconscious, you can't answer that. Okay, well, you know what? This is not every technology is perfect. Or you give it like several minutes, maybe 5 minutes before it calls for help.
Yeah.
Something like that, a few minutes. Or maybe it's switchable. Well, I'm out skiing. Yeah, I want this thing to work, but I need to give it a little more time that I can get my phone out and say, no, I'm okay. Something along those lines. But I really think if you're skiing and you're not backcountry skiing, you're skiing where there's a bunch of other people, just turn it off. Somebody's got to know you're hurt. You're probably skiing with friends or family anyway.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to know you're hurt. They'll get help for you. You don't necessarily need this feature while you're out skiing. Now, if you're backcountry, I would argue that you probably should be equipped with an avalanche beacon anyway, a personal locator beacon anyway for backcountry skiing. So
absolutely.
You should not be relying on your iPhone for that anyway. So what I'm getting at is it's a flaw in the system. Apple's aware of it. I still think it doesn't detract that it's a really cool piece of technology. But as we're finding out, that's the issue. Still great technology. Still really, really cool stuff. The fact that Apple squeezed in a satellite transmitter into your iPhone, I think is just incredible.
And it's free for 2 years. That's awesome.
And what that opens up for future technology, future phones, and hopefully, Samsung and Google and Motorola get on board with this. Say, hey, we can put the same thing in our phones.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, but they've got to figure out this thing about calling 911 for skiers who fall down and go boom.
And speaking of Apple, I got a Apple Watch Ultra for Christmas. I've never really wanted an Apple Watch in the past, but the Ultra was specifically designed for outdoor use. It has a much heftier battery, has added bands for GPS, so it's much more accurate. And so I'm excited to get out into the field in the next few weeks and wear the Apple Watch and the Garmin to see how they stack up. I'm still learning like the apps and everything, but yeah, I'm really, really excited to see how this stacks up.
And I wear the Suunto 9 barometer. It actually has a barometric altitude sensor as opposed to doing it by GPS, which the one thing GPS does not nail very well is altitude. So a barometric sensor works really, really great. But yeah, pretty cool that you've got that. So you like it, huh, so far?
I mean, it's a brand new toy, so yeah.
New toys are always good. Those are the kind of things I want to talk about on today's podcast. What else did you have, Kevin? Anything you got going on or anything you got coming up pretty soon that you're going to...
No, I've just been annoyed that I got this new toy and I haven't really had a chance to go out with it yet. So I hope to do that this weekend. I'm actually not sure what the weather is supposed to be, but it gets warm over the weekend. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there you go. So I could go out and do some hiking and let us know how that works. I'd be interested to see how that works versus your Garmin.
Yeah.
Be interested to see how those two compare. So maybe next time you're on, we can talk about that. With that, Kevin, anything else you had?
Nope, I'm just excited to have a review next time I'm on the show. So.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about how your watch works for you, and we can compare notes between... We'll have 3 different watches we can talk about.
Yeah.
An Apple, a Garmin, and a Suunto. The interesting about the Suunto, and I'll just touch on this real quickly, when I had a Casio GPS watch, and I really liked it, and the price point was really good, and the features were good, but they had a couple of issues with them. The first one I had, the touchscreen stopped working.
I forgot about that,
entirely. Unfortunately, it was like a week before it went out of warranty, so they replaced it. And then that one, a couple of months later, battery went dead, wouldn't charge, wouldn't do anything, and Casio no longer supports them. And if they're out of warranty, you're out of luck. So...
Oh, that's a bummer.
It became a paperweight. And then Suunto used to be like the real expensive GPS watch. They're now pretty reasonably priced, and dollar for dollar, they're a better bargain than the Garmin's are. Because I talked to you a couple of times and I was looking for a new one. But it turned out the Suuntos at the different price points have better features than the Garmin's do. And the Apple's kind of somewhere in the mix there.
Yeah.
Kind of somewhere in between. But in any case, we'll talk about that next time we have you on after you go hiking this weekend.
Perfect.
And see how your watch does out there. And I think with that, we'll say goodbye. Don't forget, if you'd like to support this podcast, you can do it for Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob. And you can donate and support this. We're going to look into making that even more flexible than it is. And there are rewards. And if none of those rewards suit what you'd like to get for being a patron, let me know, and I'll work out something with you that's equitable and make sure you're appropriately rewarded for your contributions. But really do appreciate that. I'll tell you a little secret. Everybody who has been a contributor got one of my special calendars this year.
Oh, nice.
And you saw one of those.
Yep.
All those pictures I put in there from the Galapagos Islands and stuff. So I had a special bonus reward for everybody this year. So everybody got one of those this year.
Cool.
Yeah, so sometimes I throw little bonuses for you. So just the only way to get those, to be a patron and help support the podcast. We're always going to keep this podcast free. One last thing, too. My column, The Independent's been a hiatus for a couple of weeks because the Independent and the Business Journal and all those newspapers that fall under their umbrella are becoming a nonprofit. They're all falling under one publication called 6035, which I'm assuming is the Elevation somewhere downtown Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
So I've been on hiatus while they're redoing that, but I should be back, not this week, but maybe, hopefully by next week, when my column should be back on at the I don't know, I want to say The Independent. I'm not sure what we're going to call it. But in any case, look forward to my column coming back on pretty soon. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get a newsletter at the end of the week, and it'll have a link to everything we've done the previous week. So
cool.
Keep an eye for that, and all that you can do from my website at hikingbob.com. All right, Kevin. Well, with that, I think we'll say goodbye to everybody, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
We'll talk to you later.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.
Before you go, did you know you can rate and review our Studio 809 podcasts? That will help us because our egos really need to have thousands and thousands of listeners. But that helps our wonderful sponsors reach more ears too. And we do love our sponsors. So just go to Studio 809 or any individual 809 podcast in your iTunes or podcast app and click on ratings and reviews. Thanks.